Welcome to another episode of the ABCs of ERP and Beyond. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into the world of inventory management and why relying on Excel might not be the best choice for businesses anymore. We'll explore the common pitfalls and limitations of using Excel to track inventory, and hopefully we'll shed some light on the challenges that businesses face as they grow, including the lack of scalability and absence of real-time updates. And of course, let's not forget the expertise required to handle complex formulas, VBA, macros, and troubleshooting errors. So we'll discuss today the implications and costs of relying on this expert Excel user. And throughout the episode, we'll unravel the importance of alternatives and how we can look at automations and predictive insights. So if you're a business owner or an ERP enthusiast or simply curious about the limitations of Excel and what other alternatives are out there for you, this is the episode for you. So let's get started. And joining me as ever is my esteemed co-host and knowledgeable Nirav Shah. Welcome back.
Thank you, Peter. I've been called a lot of things in my life. Esteem was not one of them. This is the first, but I appreciate it. Happy to discuss this topic. I think it affects a lot of people. I have quite a story of my own for a recent cutover that we're doing for a customer right now. Excel affects everybody. In one way, shape, or form, it affects everybody. They use it on a day-to-day basis. When you talk about inventory control and the impact there, there's pros and cons to managing inventory and your business for that matter. So I think we've talked about this, on and off in various different other podcasts that we have shot. But it comes down to where Excel is one of those gateways to, hey, we're formalizing something, we're organizing our data kind of, but doing it too much, more than it's actually necessary to do, right, for your business. It could actually grow into a monster that's more detrimental to the business than the original thought around data organization when you decided to, use Excel to run business. So it has to be carefully thought out. What's the plan for maybe initial phase to get some data organization in place, but that shouldn't be the final answer. That shouldn't be the end all be all. That should just be a springboard to kind of understanding here. There's a certain point for us using Excel where we need to then move out of this and get into a more integrated system where we could rely on the data and not rely on maybe a specific Excel expert or, have to rely on somebody on potentially Fiverr that doesn't even know the spreadsheet and we have to make some changes, right? Or that probably the worst scenario, that the Excel spreadsheet's wrong and it goes unnoticed for such a long time. So this is a really important topic, I think, as it connects to ERP and other technologies that businesses use to run, their processes and I'm hoping, this episode brings to light a lot of things that current customers are facing, challenges, good or bad, but also giving them ideas on how to move past Excel and look at the bigger picture and look at what else is out there and get on, proven business processes from other solutions.
Yeah, I think this is the problem, that the Excel is so versatile. It's a tool that can be used for so many different things. And you got to start deciding what should it handle and what shouldn't it handle. Because, most processes can probably be done through Excel, but that doesn't mean it should be done through Excel.
Right.
Like, it can do anything, but it shouldn't really be doing everything. And it's very easy, and it's a slippery slope to becoming so bottlenecked on Excel reports. I've seen this firsthand where there's multiple reports that need to run every single day just to get the standard data. And every single time you have this, it's an opportunity for something to go wrong. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this stat, but I've seen a stat out there from I think it was a research study by Harvard University, who said that 88% of Excel reports out there in businesses have a mistake, have an error. 88%. That's 9
Wow.
out of 10 reports.
That's unbelievable. Wow. Gosh.
And of those, they counted an error as a human error. So it might be something that was, say, rows that were hidden that shouldn't have been, or something was the cell reference was locked and it wasn't dragged down. All these kind of things, they're just human errors. But yeah, it results in 88%. I've also seen that there's an industry out there. Their freelance work is going into businesses and taking a look at their suite of reports and finding mistakes and fixing them.
Oh my gosh. I mean, think about having $1 million of inventory. We'll take some small numbers here. And let's say that there's an error in the report. Probably makes up 10% of the report. That's $100,000 of bad information out there. And that's mind-boggling, right? And that could be, any number of things, right? On a report. I'll take an example. Put together an example here on the fly. You have a Excel report where you're tracking incoming purchases. And you have costs on there that are old costs, that aren't maybe correct costs. So what you're actually seeing on what you should be receiving in is term of inventory valuation based on PO price is wrong versus your invoice price. So you're always getting a variance. And how do you, but technically you're not getting a variance because you're using Excel. So someone is manually managing this and the data's wrong, right? Wow, that's an unbelievable stat that, it's so common to have errors in Excel reports and they go unnoticed for so long.
Even in your example there, there's the ramifications of that have effect in other areas as well, because then if you say, well, let's just have a variance bucket, let's just put it down as purchase variance, well, then you're denying yourself the opportunity to, if you're just putting it all into this one bucket, it might be a particular supplier who's getting away with charging you more than they should, and it doesn't then allow you to have that conversation and see, right, where exactly are my costs going up?
Right.
Instead, we're just like having to pool all this variance, and we'll just call it variance, and we'll just put it into a bucket. It doesn't then allow you to do that, and this is a human error in an Excel report.
Wow. Yeah, it's I think out of this topic we're going to have a ton of things to talk about. I think the first thing is the maintenance of this of managing Excel, right? How real time can it be?
Absolutely.
It's in a lot of cases, as we go in and implement and we put in ERP systems. It's I always say for ERP systems, it's a living, breathing system. And it's not one of those things where you just set it and forget it, right? Like anything else, you got to update it. Your business is maturing. Your vendors are getting faster in delivering, so you shouldn't be updating lead times in your system. So that's reflected in the planning side. You're purchasing better equipment, right? If you're the manufacturer or the distributor, you're purchasing better equipment, so your lead times are improving. So you should account for that and update your ERP system. There's some items that you no longer use. Costs are being changed, right? So ERP systems are meant to evolve as you evolve, but somehow Excel, right? You don't track some of this data, first of all. And number two, if you try to, it doesn't get updated as quickly, right? So users just kind of put it off saying, yeah, in my head now, I know, it used to take us 3 days to ship, but, we got this really cool palette optimization machine and it shrink wraps for us and it automatically identifies, what items I should be pulling into this palette. And I get my palette ready in 1 day instead of 3 days now, and I could ship right away. Hey, that's great. But besides you knowing that, who else knows that? Right? If there's people up there upstream on the sales side that need to make decisions on, hey, Mr. Customer's calling and saying, hey, we need this and we need this soon. How quickly can you get it? We were saying 3 days. Customer's going to say, well, I need it sooner than that. Is there any way we get it for me a day? I can't, right, Mr. Customer, because it takes us 3 days because of our shipping process. Little does the CSR know that actually this new machine out there that we have could turn around inventory within a day and be able to ship something out to the customer. But it's not relayed, not updated anywhere in a spreadsheet for the CSR to make that, timely, informed decision when talking to the customer. So now you're losing out business because they may be going somewhere else.
For me, that's exactly the problem. It's keeping the data updated. And for me, this is where the location of the data is the problem. Because Excel versus an ERP, Excel needs the data within Excel. If we ignore things like Power Query or linking SharePoint files together and bringing it in, I know there's alternatives there, but really it's the storage of data. And often you need to pull all of the data out of your system into Excel, into a raw data worksheet, and then have whatever report you want as a secondary worksheet.
Right.
And every single time you want to do any changes or something changes in your business, now the ERP will handle that automatically as things get posted. Whereas that's not necessarily the case for the Excel report. Well, the Excel won't at all. Maybe it's a case of just refreshing the report. Maybe you've got a plug-in like Jet Reports and you just need to run it again.
Yep.
But that still comes back to the human having to run it to get fresh data, because the data needs to be in Excel before you can report on it. And this, for me, is the issue with maintenance. The ERP will look after this stuff. If we talk about inventory, for example, if your inventory is changing minute by minute, you're really going to have someone sitting there refreshing a Jet report minute by minute.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It could outgrow itself really quickly, right? I have another example. A bunch of examples today. This is really near and dear to my heart here, Peter. I had another example of a customer that their previous ERP system, I forgot the name of it now. I don't want to put another system on blast, but essentially it crashed. And then it was crashing. The server was kind of teetering on its last breath. And they were hoping that it would actually die naturally, a natural death, once they got onto the new ERP system, in our case, Microsoft Business Central. But it decided to croak right at training. So while they were training on prices, it basically went out. And they couldn't get any of the data out. So they had to immediately go from like training to go live with a matter of like 3 days.
Oh,
because they had nothing else, right? So they tried to go live, but they still didn't know the system. So what they did is they try to run parallel. So now they're trying to like keep up with business, trying to learn it as they're going. But now they're trying to create all these spreadsheets. They had an AP spreadsheet. They had a sales order spreadsheet. They had a sales invoice spreadsheet, right? They had an inventory spreadsheet. They started putting, they're like, oh yeah, we can at least start logging in here so we don't lose data. But what happened was, in this case, it's a little unique because they had two systems. They had Business Central going and Excel at the same time. They started putting data in one system and didn't bother putting in another system. So now you had data all over the place. They're bouncing back and forth, basically pulling their hair out, trying to figure out, well, did we pay this? Did the customer pay this invoice? Well, it shows paid here in Business Central. Doesn't show paid in Excel. Well, was I in the office that day to actually go ahead and update the Excel document? Or did I have access to Business Central remote that I updated over there? Like, what happened? And they're still not reconciled. And they had 2 or 3 months of data they're doing this in. And now we're working towards the reconciliation. But it's exactly what you said is, if you think that Excel is going to be the truth for you, right? That's assuming people are going to be truthful and they're going to update that real time. And they're going to update that, so you can make better business decisions, right? Because Excel is so manual, right? Unlike an ERP system, you could complete a receipt that's independent from a purchasing, right, transaction. So the receipt will close out the purchasing, the purchase order receipt part of it. So you don't have to update the purchase order manually. right? It all
Yep.
happens kind of real time. So from that aspect, yeah, it's the lack of real time updates in Excel is probably one of the situations where it could really hurt your business because you
Mm.
really don't know maybe what's outstanding. If you're a purchasing guy, you rely on the Excel file, but the purchasing guy is receiving things but hasn't updated the Excel file on what's been received in. You may order more, right?
Mm.
Or you're going to call your vendor and get mad at your vendor, and your vendor's going to say, "Hey, buddy, I already shipped this out, and based on
Yeah.
tracking number, you already received it." you know, could cause relationship issues.
Mm.
So,
And internally as well, I
mhm,
think, because
mhm,
if like Narav's report comes over and it's wrong, it's like, well, blame Narav and his report. So, well,
again,
it's not
again,
Narav's data,
yeah,
is it?
yeah,
It's the business's database. So it's like then you end up with people going, I'm going to make my own report.
yeah,
I'm going to pull his one apart and make my own one because I don't trust his one.
yeah, yeah,
So then do you think everyone's going to now trust yours over Narav's, over John's, over
right,
Steve's? It's like, this is the problem. And you
exactly.
end up with everyone thinking that their version is the truth.
Hmm.
And everyone's got their own version of the truth.
Hmm.
So you can't really pull as a team together if you're all looking at your own offline copy
Yeah, yeah.
of someone else's because you didn't trust that one. That was wrong, and he doesn't update his quick enough. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think that's definitely one of the pitfalls here is relying on Excel too much, but not knowing that, hey, is it being updated real time? Because businesses nowadays, they need real time, information. You can't afford
Mm-hmm.
not knowing the day something comes in. You
Mm-hmm.
need to right away because you turn that around and ship it back out to your customer. You need that to stay to have a competitive advantage. You need that. So I think that's one definitely the pitfalls here.
Okay, so if we flip this round then in terms of having to manually update Excel versus how an ERP would handle it. So I guess if we're saying that we're no longer having to manually update things in an ERP, we're talking about automation here, are we?
Yeah, I think we're talking about automation. I think we're talking about taking advantage of best practices that are come out of the box with ERP systems, right?
Okay.
To facilitate that real time reporting at the end of the day,
Okay.
because an integrated system will help you um, keep the checks and balances in place. So you have receiving doing their thing, and we're not trying to pick on the purchasing guys; they do their job very well. But you have receipts coming in. What's that doing? Automatically updating on-hand inventory, automatically informing the purchaser that hey, something's come in, right? Automatically
Mm.
informing shipping. I can go and pull a pick because inventory's come in. I can start shipping. It basically, you think about that data moving, right? It goes and updates the proper places in the system so the proper audience, right, or team member gets access to that information right away and can react, right, be more
Mm.
proactive instead of reactive, essentially, um, to help the day-to-day business process flow.
Mm. And I think with that, if everything's constantly is kind of interconnected, isn't it? Everything like if something comes in that adjusts inventory, that means CSRs can now have a conversation with the customer saying, "Look, we've just received it right now. We can ship it today for you." So it's all that the connected system actually connects teams together, teams of
Yeah,
people, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly, absolutely, and that's a huge part is that when you have trustworthy data, your teams come together more and they could come together and collaborate and trust that single source of truth instead of having everyone else has their own source of truth, as you said, and they have their own version of what the ideal specific scenario looks like to them.
Hmm. And I'm going to mention it because this is a topic I love, but artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
We see that this is a really hot topic and is coming to ecosystems. I know Microsoft are really, really going for this open AI partnership they now have, Microsoft Copilot
yep,
that we've spoken about previously, I think, haven't we?
yep, yep, yep.
So having this in your ecosystem And if you're on, for example, Business Central, and I'm sure other ERP platforms are also looking at this, you get the opportunity to have a look at the power of machine learning and maybe some preventative measures, some predictions against maybe inventory levels or expected inventory levels when things are coming in, and maybe future issues that you might not necessarily spot if you're looking at past data in an Excel report. So I guess the predictive nature that we're starting to see come as a larger part of the ERP is really something that gives it that leg over Excel reporting, I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that a little bit, right? AI coming into the mix now opens up a whole new world of benefits, right? In terms of being able to extrapolate, and add to Excel, where it could look at trends, analysis of your files, um, all the things that you'd expect AI to help you identify, right? But at the same time, if it's not updated correctly and it's not maintained, the data is going to be skewed. And if the data is bad and you're relying on AI to make those decisions, right, to pump different ways that you're going to review and analyze your business, it's going to give you bad information and you're going to make bad decisions on the business.
Mm.
So as much as it's going to be necessary, and AI is going to be a huge factor in how spreadsheets are manipulated and reviewed, and the data that you get out of it. It could also be a situation where it could be very detrimental if not understood, how AI could take what's existingly there and come up to false conclusions at the end of the day. And that's what essentially what ERP systems will will be better at inherently, because it it will try to keep, right, everybody honest under the same set of data sets, right? So if somebody didn't receive
Mm.
something,
Yeah.
everyone's going to see it, and then question the person that, hey, how come something wasn't received in, or if something wasn't shipped, to question the person, right? um, or if they received an incorrect quantity, well, now based on what sales sees, someone's going to question that. So you have that feedback loop that could go back and always create better processes, because you have a single source of truth there. And now when you put AI on top of it, right, it could look at, well, okay, every time someone's receiving something, there's some sort of um, adjustments that are made because the entry is not correct the first time, right? And you could start looking at these different type of analysis, and then obviously take that one step further and look at vendor performance, vendor delivery, vendor rating, customer rating, right? Predictive payments. How late something, your vendor, that your customer is going to pay you. You could know that up front in the sales order process. So when you have that single system that is updated or will be updated in real time, when you try to search for information, you're going to see what's presently there, and then could question it and scrutinize it and try to get to the right data that's necessary. Versus Excel, that's hard to follow, because everyone will have their own source of truth, and then you're making 15 phone calls and trying to figure out whose spreadsheet you should use, and which one you should run AI on to get information. Maybe there's a new product line or something that you want to launch. But yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, AI is going to be groundbreaking. It's gonna go ahead and affect a lot of different industries. It's going to affect these different tools that customers use on a day-to-day basis. But you want to make sure that it's working for you, but not against you.
Yeah, and I think that the issues with Excel won't go away when we have AI within Excel as well, because it's just going to be analyzing the data in Excel. And if you haven't pulled the latest data
Yeah.
from the system, or if it's manually typed, God forbid, um, is it typed in correctly? It
Right.
can only analyze what is given.
Yeah.
It's like good data in, good data out,
Good
or
data out.
good data in, good insights out.
Yeah.
So I don't think AI is ever going to really solve that if it's just not got good underlying data.
Well, that's just that's that's just going to be robotics. That's going to be a machine. When something comes in, it just gets scanned in, essentially gets weighed in. You know, and someone's opening the box, doing some sort of count. And there was a conference that just happened in Chicago. Was it Chicago or somewhere else? Yeah, but there's an automation conference, and there was some cool stuff on there. I was following on LinkedIn. Like they had
Okay.
robots that did receiving and would go ahead and take that data and update an ERP system automatically.
What, like walk over to a computer and
Yeah,
type it in?
yeah, exactly. I was like blown away. I was like, holy cow. Obviously, it has to be based on industry, right? It can't be on everything, but I don't know. It's kind of heading that way. Automation is getting much bigger day by day, and
Yep.
there's these full robots that are just really obviously going to be a lot more accurate, right? It's going to be a lot more predictable. It's going to be,
Mm.
reliable in terms of what's it doing. So I think that's a lot of use cases there. A lot of
Mm.
uh, movement. I think in the right direction to automate some of
Mm.
these functionality that used to kind of is used to just relied on a lot of human intervention.
Yeah. And I believe if you stay on that Excel path, then it leads us nicely onto our next point here is limited scalability.
Mhm.
So as your business grows, or you just get into a busy period of the year, is your process of Excel based running going to keep up with that? I just think it's just going to get more and more bogged down. I think from a technical standpoint, knowing that the data needs to reside in Excel, for the most part, people do that. And as that grows, it's only going to get bogged down. And then you start having to strip out data, and it just becomes a nightmare from that point of view. So the limited scalability of using something like Excel is really going to hurt as you grow. Like there's only a finite number of rows you can have in Excel.
Yep.
There's only a finite number of columns you can have, and will that file actually grow with your business? I doubt it.
Right. Right. Especially if you have that many lines. I think should have been looking at something when you got too close to 1,000 lines or 10,000 lines, right? Looking for an alternative that's a much more robust, secure system. But bring up a good point. I have actually currently I'm doing a cutover right now, and in that
Okay.
cutover process, they had to run an inventory evaluation report out of their legacy system. Granted, it was not Excel, right? But it was an older ERP system, SL in this case,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, at like 50,000 lines, but it took almost 6 hours to run to extract inventory evaluation data.
Wow.
Could you imagine opening up an Excel file and running just a small macro on a file that 50,000 rows?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's most of a working day.
Yeah. And then what happens if that file is corrupt? Can't open that file
Yeah.
anymore. You've lost it. I've
Yeah.
done it a few
Yeah.
times in my career, probably more early on than now, but I'll start saving it as CSV, then change it back, and then sometimes it'll go into text, and next thing you know, the whole damn thing is corrupt. Can't open it anymore.
Yep. Yeah. Or Excel just randomly locks and says
Yeah,
not responding. Where
yeah,
it kind of goes opaque. You're like, oh, here we go.
yeah. You get the donut of death. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's very fragile. When you get to that point, when you get that many lines in there, it's very fragile, and at any given moment, you could lose that data, and that could be the difference
Yes.
between not life and death, but it's almost like a car crash that happened, and now you need to reconstruct it, and it becomes very, very difficult to do.
I mean, they're really for me, two ends of the spectrum, aren't they? An Excel report on one hand that's not very stable, prone to corruption, takes ages to run, versus ERP sitting on a cloud server, multi-redundancy, multi-site redundancy across the planet. If North American East Coast server goes down, well, it's also on the Sweden server.
Exactly.
They're two ends of the spectrum for me.
Yeah. It's a quote unquote, the new buzzword, a single handshake. It's data coming in, it's updating other pieces of tables and processes for other departments to use, right? Without having to look at so many other files and, putting together, your forensic science, hat and become a detective to figure out what's going on with this data, right? It's a single handshake. Um, Everyone is using a single source of truth, and there's no hiding behind your own Excel file versus somebody else's Excel file. It's all right there in the open for everybody, right? And I think that's how you build and that's how you scale at the end of the day.
I like the idea of separating the two tasks from analysis and process. So Excel is great. Like, I don't want to sound like we're just bashing on
Right,
Excel,
right,
but it has its place.
yeah,
And for me, its place is in mostly in finance, I have to say, financial reporting. Like, just leave it to do that.
yeah,
That's what it's great at.
yeah,
It shouldn't become a part of your process. It shouldn't be the way that sales teams know that inventory's been scanned in.
yeah,
It shouldn't be the way that inventory management is done. It shouldn't be the way that we look at how we schedule work orders. That's a process,
right.
and the ERP is going to handle that. Any ERP is going to handle that a
Hmm.
lot more, a lot better than an
Yeah,
Excel sheet will.
yeah,
So I think the decision for me is this process or is this just analysis after the fact?
right. Absolutely. It's Excel has its place for it, and it should be, used optimistically but also cautiously, to ensure you're getting the most benefit out of it, right? And I think we've kind of touched on a lot of different scenarios where, if these are not considered as part of your Excel strategy, it could turn around and hurt you, right? And the whole purpose of us going through here today and talking about this is a lot of companies fall into this trap, right? Or there's companies that are now just starting to organize themselves, that they'll be able to be one step ahead of this, right? And maybe start saying, yeah, this is good, as you mentioned, Peter, that it's more for financial reporting, right? Or let's get to a point where, we get to a certain transaction volume, and then let's look at a more robust ERP system, right? And again, a lot of ERP systems, we've said this before in various different podcasts, they are very, very cost sensitive now. The barrier of
Mm.
entry to get into an ERP system is way lower than it ever was before. So consider those options, right? You have Microsoft Business Central, you have Acumatica, there's other ones out there, but it doesn't take long to get up and going. But now you're starting on the right foot,
Yep.
and you are organizing yourself much better, and you're getting out there to make better business decisions on your items, your cost, your relationships with vendors and customers, right? All these things that may matter outside of any system, but you have the data to back up that it's going to actually make a difference on what that data is saying and how your conversations are going to go. So, this to me is a really important point because a lot of customers and a lot of companies think that they can just get by with Excel, right? And I would say kind of reconsider that. Yeah, you could use Excel, but there's time and place for it.
And with ERP is it's really modular, and we've seen that you have different roles now. Um, and I can log in as a warehouse manager, or I
Mm-hmm.
could log in as a plant manager and just see the stuff that I care about and really the stuff that I'm an expert on. And really having those experts out there on the shop floor, the people closest to the work are the ones that are going to be the most informed
Yeah,
of day-to-day decisions and running of a business. The using everything as processed through an ERP is going to enable them, it's going to empower them to do it. Whereas on the Excel side of things, often you need, as we said at the start of this, you need that Excel wizard.
yeah,
And very soon that Excel wizard can become a bottleneck.
yeah,
If that Excel wizard gets pissed and wants to leave or just quits, like what are you going to do the next day? How do you replace someone that's become so dependent on within a business?
yeah, yeah,
You know, if they create this report and everyone now relies on that report, but that report is held together with band-aids and VBA and macros, and don't run this before you hit that macro button because the whole thing crashes. Like, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have.
There's no future proofing.
There's no
That's
future
the thing.
proofing.
I think there's no future proofing.
No, for sure not. I do have a joke. If that's okay,
no.
Peter, if I could share a joke to our audience members, I think they'll really like it. Drum roll, please.
Okay.
Why did the spreadsheet go to therapy?
I don't know. Why did the spreadsheet go to therapy?
It had too many unresolved cells. Oh gosh. I know. That was good. That was really good. I was laughing for days on that one, actually.
Yeah, okay. I think you just need to stick to the ERP implementation business, and you'll be fine. Please don't go to stand up.
Had too many unresolved cells. That was pretty funny, man.
Yeah.
You're a tough crowd, Peter. Tough crowd.
So what's the summary then? So open your eyes, get out of Excel. Don't run processes through Excel. Look at ERP. Look at now the world of ERP is certainly a lot different than it was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Lower barrier of entry, a lot of automation and scalability. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Any other pearls of wisdom on this topic?
Don't hold your business together with threads of Excel files everywhere. Really have a more robust solution that's a lot more powerful, that has best processes in it, that is, will be able to, provide you with real-time data visibility and things, right? Instead of having all these different Excel files around. There's options out there. There's a low cost of entry to these options, right? Low turnaround implementations as well. So definitely would love to talk to any of our viewers and listeners that have this problem, how we could help solve it at the end of the day, right? It's still not too late to optimize your business, right? And, this is an important topic to talk about because a lot of people fall into this trap, if you will.
Yeah, you say there's lots of features and options out there in the world of ERP. So, what's the best way people can get in contact with you?
Yeah, we'll put it down in our in our video. Select this at the email address below,
up here or down here,
up there. But it's narav.shot@erp.com, right? Get hold of Peter. We'll love to kind of have these chats. We live for this stuff. We're kind of ERP nerds here, but if there's any specific problem you want to talk about or just want to bounce some ideas, we're more than happy to help out.
Sounds good. As ever, thank you for your time. Take it easy. I'll catch you in a couple of weeks' time.
You got it, sir. Talk soon.
Cool. Have a good one.
You too.